All right, guys, class 13, arm lock from the guard, second slice, high variation. So slightly different bad guy behavior, a lot of similar principles. So this one will be a little quicker. So starting out in the guard, this time the person has the same initial behavior, but you lose head control completely. So we have to deal with this. But we have a gift of these arms on our chest. So, picking it up at this point from where things really get different, head control is no longer an issue in this one because it's been lost. That's part of the indicator for this, is you no longer have head control. If she wants to take this arm, she's going to hug the wrist, uncross, make the same pivot, but now she's got a little bit of a jump. She's got to get to my shoulder now. So, what's different? Sorry. Catching the wrist. Monkey. Take over.
Monkey grip on the wrist. I'm still going to hug the leg. We didn't really talk about this. I'm sure Henry and you don't cover it in detail, but I'm underhooking on his thigh. Go inside the thigh to the outside. That's helping me pivot. My legs, this leg is kicking off of his hip and the other one's moving up into his armpit, sort of like a scissors action to help me. Now from here, I can use my leg on the back of his, on his back here to help pick myself up. This one comes around. The biggest thing is my hips must find his shoulders. Here.
So this is partner drilling. Probably the biggest thing is just, I want to be at a different height than I was for the low variation arm lock by nature of the reason for this move. But sometimes I see people that are like this, and they're not like even putting their hands on the person's chest because they're just like over dramatizing that position. Especially if your partner's new to this, just having, here versus here, this is fine. This is a different position. They might be able to jump up when I get to here. At a certain point, it's not an intelligent jump for anybody, depending on how far the person gets away. We start to drive into different move territory. So don't get too crazy with that. So she grabs the wrist, she makes the turn, boom, just like that. This is an easier one to tip over on involuntarily as the bad guy because you're sitting up sometimes a little bit taller. We talked about the finish for when the person tips over, so that's fine. But we do want them to understand the finishing position from the bottom. So widen your knees out and find a good base so you don't tip over. If you want to explore that tip over on purpose, do the standard finish and then release some pressure and do a tip over. By herself.
Yeah. So I think this is where the solo drill is fairly beneficial here. The beginning, fairly similar. Hug the wrist, uncross the legs and reach for the arms, or reach for the leg. Make my internal pivot here. And now from here, what I would like you guys to do is practice shooting up. Because that's really what we need to do. You don't need to get that high for most people, but this is where being solo is valuable. And it would be good to do a few of these before you get to the dummy, if you have your dummy work, because he just won't sit up as high. He's just sort of floppy.
Speaking of Mr. Floppy.
So from here, one thing that can help is if I spread his legs out a little bit so that I can have him sitting up a little bit more, put his hands on my chest. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to put my foot on the ground and make my pivot, but even now you can see that he's starting to dip a little bit lower than I would like him to. So from here, my leg comes around and up, squeeze, both hands around the wrist, boom. You want to practice that roll, hug. Again, with the dummy you can. But again, I think here's where the solo drilling and really getting in the habit of being able to put your hips up sort of independently is very nice and helpful.
One more.
Yeah.
I can't remember if we talked about this, but let's jump it in here since this is going to be on video forever. The position of the arm for the final break. So she grabs her wrist, she makes the turn. This would apply to either variation that we covered. She's bringing my arm down by her south side shoulder, the one that's closer to my feet, and my elbow is breaking over her hip, not over her groin area. So this is just a position, and this is kind of naturally where the arm will fall, but you want to make sure that you're emphasizing that, bringing it towards the south hip. The thumb should be facing away from you. That's going to articulate the joint the proper way. And if you're working with a partner and you're using your hips in order to make the pressure, be sure to go super slow, because people don't tend to have as much control over their hips and how far they move. I can move my hands very slowly, but it takes a little practice to be that careful and that slow with your hips. So don't be jerky with that. Can lead to injury. So
if you're working with the dummies, it's going to be really hard to get to the south side of anything because their arms are very short.
yeah.
This is where it's really helpful to say things out loud. Okay, I'm taking
Yes.
my hand to the south side shoulder and their thumb is pointing up.
Yeah.
Because if you say it, it helps you remember to do it. And that way, working with the dummy doesn't become something where it develops bad habits because he had short arms and no thumb.